telling myself is that I'm maybe not capable, that I have no talent, and maybe I don't even belong here. Team to have a good prompt, to go into solution mode and to go wide, to like come up with different solutions so that we can pick the best one. So I thought, okay, what are we going to do in like just 1 week in order to demonstrate at least still the power of user-centered design? Thanks for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. So today I'm going to talk about this, user-centered design applied to technical B2B products. And I'm going to talk about my experience as a product designer, working on different B2B products, but with an angle of also like rather technical products. And I'm going to explain to you in a bit what I mean with that. And I'm going to talk about my experience, also about some rough patches along the way. I'm going to talk about imposter syndrome, and mainly I'm going to talk about my process and what I learned. So I'm a product designer, and thanks to Theodora, we already learned that there are a lot of designers here in the crowd, so that's great. And I have been doing this for a couple of years now. I have a process that is quite established and that I feel comfortable with. And I used to, I work with this think, make, check process a lot in an iterative way. That means that every project I start, I do an exploratory phase in the beginning, where I try to understand and get to know the users that I'm building for, understand their pains and their needs, and talk to them, create personas and workflows. Then to go into a solutioning phase, where I'm creating wireframes, prototypes maybe, coming up with solutions for their specific needs and problems. In order then to check, so I want to validate my hypothesis, I want to run usability tests, and interviews with those users in order to see if my solution is a good solution for them. And then in the end, coming back to seeing okay, is it validated or not? Do we want to persevere with the solution? Do we want to test another solution? Or do we tackle the next big problem? And so this process has been working really well for me, and I've been working for a couple of startups in Berlin on the B2C side, where the domain is usually very relatable. And so I've worked for a company, for example, that sells customized furniture, shelves that you can customize to your needs. And even though I wasn't a power user of that product, I could very well relate to the domain and understand it rather quickly. Then I started working for Pivotal Labs, which is a software consultancy. It's an American company based in San Francisco, and we have offices all over the world. We have one in Paris as well. This is where I'm based. And we have a lot of big enterprise customers, which usually means that we have a lot of B2B projects. And so here, it was a little bit different for me in the beginning, and I got used to changing the domain every now and then with every project. And in the beginning, it's always a bit like this in a B2B project for me. There's a road ahead, and I can't not really see well what's going on because it's a domain unknown to me. And little by little then, you get to learn more about the topic and the domain, and it gets clearer and clearer. Especially when you're using your process, because then you're talking to customers, you're learning about their problems and their use cases, you're learning some special language that they use, and you're understanding more and more and easier. But then with technical products and projects, it was a little bit like this for me, even more obscure and foggy, because then on top of the domain being fuzzy and unknown, the domain was very technical, and I don't have at all a technical background. So even more obscure and even more scary for me. And what do I mean with technical products? So this could mean that the end user of the product is a developer. This could mean that there are a lot of integrations with other technical systems to do that I don't know, or I have never used. It could even mean that there's not even a graphic user interface to design, or all three of them. And it happened to me sometimes, and this was the moment where I really felt like I need to panic right now. So just to give you an example about what I mean, this was a kickoff for a German company that I worked for in the public sector, and they wanted to build a data model editor. And as we were writing the vision onto the wall, and I'm going to read it out to you, it said, a service which publishes a version schema over an API for the consumption of the ingest, governance, and application development teams. Very inspiring vision, because usually when we do that, then I kind of understand the most of the words that we put into the sentence, and in this case I was just sitting there asking myself, how on earth will I be able to help achieve this vision? Because I don't really understand what we're talking about. And then another example for a French big automotive company, they wanted to test, or they wanted to validate if a certain test framework can actually be set in place in order to be used by users that are not very technical. And the framework looked a little bit like this. So to me, I was seeing like Chinese. I didn't really understand what was going on. And again, I was asking myself the question, how can a designer, me in this case, validate if this is the right solution or not? So this is what I mean with technical. And then these little voices in my head that go like this, I still cannot believe that they're letting me do this. Or it's only a matter of time until they find out that I have no clue at all. So basically what I was telling myself is that I'm maybe not capable, that I have no talent, and maybe I don't even belong here. So this is what I mean with like imposter syndrome, and it happened to me on some of those projects in the beginning. And some negative side effects of this were like that I didn't ask questions because I was afraid of like other people noticing that I don't have a clue about the domain. I let developers run user interviews because I felt I wasn't capable of running them and asking questions at the right time or like digging into the details at the right time. And I even asked my manager to replace me on a project because I didn't see the value I was bringing. And in hindsight, I see it differently. I understand, that I brought value to the team, but I had these moments, and that's why I want to share them out and tell you what I learned after that. So, developers are users too, right? If not me as a designer cares about them and advocates for them, then who will? So I knew that, and I wanted to like challenge myself again and like find a way to really use my user-centered design approach, even on technical B2B products. And so I talked to a colleague from London, Kevin Gates, who is working for the same company in London, and he's writing blog posts about this topic, about how to overcome imposter syndrome on technical products, working as a designer in a technical domain. And he inspired me with a lot of good examples to try again, and just like reassured me that it's okay to not understand everything from the get-go, and it's just like asking a lot of questions is going to be a normal way to approach this. And so with this newfound positivity and motivation, I was looking for another project again that was in the technical space, and I'm going to tell you a little summary about this project. It was a project for Pivot Cloud Foundry, which is our own in-house platform as a service Cloud Foundry solution offering, which basically means that companies can come and deploy their applications in a more safe, secure, and scalable way. And so one of the teams at Cloud Foundry was looking to hire a designer for their team, especially a PM who wanted another person with a more product mindset. She said she wanted to apply a more user-centered approach, but the rest of the team was not used to working with designers. And all by herself, she felt like she needed some support. So great. This project, when she was explaining to me like what this project was all about, I didn't quite understand the domain again, so I had my doubts. But what I heard were these things, and here I felt like, okay, I can help with this. She was saying like there are a lot of random features that ended up in the backlog. And they were working on unvalidated problems and had untested solutions in the stories. And when I heard this, I thought, okay, I can help you with this. And we'll figure the technical problem space, we'll figure that out on the way. So then I went to London, got to know the team, and we spent a bit of time together where they really explained me what it was all about, what they were working on, and we defined some goals for the research. So we defined what we really wanted to learn from the users that we were interviewing, that we were going to interview. And we also spent some time, just like the PM, doing a lot of sketches for me in a very simple way in order to explain the different kind of technical implications, departments, systems in place, and that really helped. And just to give you some context, the team was working for the marketplace of Pivotal Cloud Foundry, where developers can go to and install instances of services that they want for their application. So for example, if your application, you want to use a database, then you could go there and install MySQL, Postgres, or if you need a messaging service, you go there and you install RabbitMQ. Okay, and then after this 1 week, I was prepared to work several weeks together with this team. I was motivated, but then things happened, and there was another project coming up that should happen in Paris, and I was allocated to this project. So I learned that actually I had only 1 week left to work with this team. And in addition, because I was back in Paris, it's going to be remotely. Okay, that's a nice little challenge on top. So I thought, okay, what are we going to do in like just 1 week in order to demonstrate at least still the power of user-centered design to this team? And then I thought, okay, we could do a design sprint. Why not? Let's take 5 days and like really try to make the most out of it. Take one problem, focus on that, try to come up with solutions for this specific problem, test them with users, and then validate so that at the end of the week we'll have a decision in order to persevere or to pivot. Okay, I'm going to go through the activities that I did together with the team. First of all, we needed to understand and prioritize the problem. Gladly, the team had already done some research. Well, actually, the PM of that team and another PM from another team together did some research and learned a lot about the current problems. So we only had to prioritize. And I'm not going to go into detail here. There were like 2 problems here, and we chose the first one, which basically means that the platform operators, so these users that are managing the services for their applications, sometimes have to manage this across many platforms, which made every action very repetitive and tedious. And this was the problem where we felt if we solve for that, it will have the most impact. That's why we chose it. And okay, we've chosen our problem. I then facilitated a scenario writing exercise with the goal of like taking the problem, adding on some context to it, a persona that also already existed, gladly, and describing an expected outcome that that persona wants to have. And since it was a remote project, you can see us having a video call here. It's me, the PM, and 2 developers of that team. And I was facilitating them, but we wrote this together. I'm not sure if you can read it, but it's really, it's like a specific example of a point in time of Alana, the platform operator, which was the persona, and what she wants to do. And the intent of a scenario is like to be as concrete as possible so that you can come up with solutions, but not taking the solution already away. So as you can see here, the blue parts, it says she goes somewhere where she can see all of the services in the marketplace. So we don't say like she opens an application or she goes, yeah, we're not like very specific because we want to leave that open for the solutioning. And so the blue parts are the things that we, where we want to bring our solution in. And the intent of the scenario is just really for the next exercise, for the team to have a good prompt, to go into solution mode and to go wide, to like come up with different solutions so that we can pick the best one. Because it's not always the obvious one that is going to succeed. Okay, and then the next exercise is like the fun part usually, where you get out, or like get everybody from the team into a room, papers, Sharpies, and you get into creation mode, and you sketch. And I think I have a picture here from another project. So usually what it looks like is a lot of people with sketches in front of a whiteboard at the end. So you can really look at a lot of different solutions together, and then decide with like dot voting, or like going into another round, what is the most promising solution. In this case, as it was remote again, it looked a little bit more like this. So we had 8 people in the video call, and we used Miro from a Realtime board, in order to be able to have still like a thing that we could all look at instead of a whiteboard. And in the beginning, this part was like, this part was empty. And I just introduced in the agenda the scenario as a prompt. And then everybody took 15 minutes to sketch themselves, like wherever they were, their solutions, their ideas. Then we took photos of this, we put it on the board so that everybody could see them, we discussed them. And then on the right-hand side, you can see our dog votes in Pokemon form. Everybody had 3 votes to put on the details or the solution that they liked the most. And after we did that, we had some winners. And then as a last part, we would try to summarize in a smaller group what the things are that people liked and why. And so with this summarized list, we had a more clear understanding about what we wanted to test next with customers. Okay, so now we had an idea for one solution to solve for that one problem, great. But still, like, we don't know if it's going to work, right? It's still a hypothesis, so we should treat it like a hypothesis. And that's why we started to write out a lean experiment. And usually a template that I like to use is like you put out the hypothesis, we think that, and then you describe the test. How are we going to test that this hypothesis is true? And then you're going to think about how do we know that the hypothesis is validated or not validated, with like the evidence or the proof, the success criteria. And you also want to think about the cost. So sometimes it's always, I don't know, I feel like designers always come to like, yeah, let's make a clickable prototype. And like in most of the cases, or in some cases, it's a good idea, but it's not always the best idea. So, you know, you need time to prepare the prototype, and then you need to test it and invite people. So sometimes the cost, you can think of other solutions that are like way less costly. So it's always good to go through this exercise and also create several lean experiments to then see if which one is maybe the least costly. Okay, so we did this together with the team. You can see the hypothesis, we have the persona again, and we made the hypothesis, the assumption that the user wants to stay in the command line interface because that's where they already are. They're like all day doing things in the command line interface, and as part of our design studio, we had an outcome that we don't want to create new tooling if it's not really required. Big assumption that we needed to test, and then we described the test basically saying that we're going to create a fake command line interface with the functionality required, and going to see if Alanas will find, well, we're not going to go into the details, but like there was a certain scenario used in the test, and we wanted to have a measurable outcome saying that at least 4 out of 5 Alanas could achieve the scenario. Okay. Prototyping. So again, usually when we go into prototyping mode as designers, we start at sketch. We sketch out something, then maybe we go to envision, so we have a clickable prototype that we could put in front of a user. In this case, as we were trying to do something in the command line interface, I used a Google Doc for the very first time in my life to design a prototype. But it's actually very easy. You just put in a black background and a monotype font, and then it kind of really well simulates a command line interface. And there's still a lot of design decisions to be done. And like it looks like just a simple list of text and a table down there, but you know it's about like which order do you put the elements in, how many do you show, and like how are they sorted, in which way do you show them. There are like so many things to decide on, and we did this also collaboratively with the developer and the PM. And then as a next step, I paired with the developer to make this actually a prototype, so that the users could go into the command line and actually do something. It was still fake because there was no real Cloud Foundry in the background hooked up to it, but it was good enough so that it simulated. You could type in the command line, you could put in commands, and you get like some results. And then we were ready for user interviews, day 4. So for the interviews, again, they happened remotely because most of the customers were like all over the world. And as you can see, we did it again with video conference. It's me and the user. There is a developer colleague who's taking notes in the background. And we used the prototype. I said in the beginning to the users that, like I stated and set expectations that I'm not a very technical person, and I'm probably going to ask a lot of naive questions. I'm going to ask you to explain me the acronyms that you're using, the technical lingo, and yeah, I'm probably going to ask a lot of questions. And they were so happy to answer all of these questions to me. It's just about really setting expectations in the beginning, and it went great. And then, as I said, we had people taking notes in the background, so after each interview, we came out with a lot of notes that we had to cluster and bring into like some insights or some problem format for like the things that were less measurable but like still interesting insights for us. We came up with like a board where we had different clusters, and then in addition we had more measurable, smaller hypothesis assumptions that we were testing as well for each interview. Was it validated? Was it not validated? Or was it kind of in between or not tested? Do we have to like look out for this again? Okay, so as a conclusion, what did we do in just 1 week? We prioritized the problems at hand and chose one to focus on, which helped the team to focus. We then did a scenario where we added some more context, a persona, and an expected outcome. We used this as a prompt for Design Studio to create many solutions with the team, collaboratively. We then tried to summarize what we think is the most promising solution and describe the lean experiment. How can we test that this solution and our hypothesis, our underlying hypothesis, is actually true? We then prototyped and did user interviews and synthesized. And actually learned that Alana is very happy to stay in the command line interface. There were some minor confusions about wordings and about scalability. She was concerned about scalability. So these were things that we learned for the next round. We knew exactly how to continue. What was the value add for the team? Well, we had a validated hypothesis, as I just said, and therefore a much clearer direction for the product. Next steps already clarified, and most of all, the team could really demonstrate the team the value of a user-centered design process. And what made me very happy is that they continued, even after I left. A few months later, the PM reached out to me and told me that they're still doing iterations, they're still doing design studios and usability sessions, and kept going. So that's great. Okay, so what did I learn from all this? First of all, don't panic, like me. Like, there's really no need to think that you're not capable. With all the toolboxes that we have as designers, we're perfectly capable. And just rest assured that it's okay to not understand everything in a technical domain or in a business domain that you're not used to. It's perfectly normal, and you're going to get there on the way. The most important thing is to understand the implications that all of these things have for the users. So continue to talk to customers and to users, and little by little, you're going to learn about the domain knowledge on the way. For technical problem space, it's great to find a dev friend who's really good at explaining things in a simple way, like with these sketches on paper. Or a thing that I also learned that helps really well is when you tell them, like, hey, imagine I'm an intern in my second week. How would you explain this to me? Like, in a really simple way, without using acronyms, without assuming that I know what all these implications are. Involving the whole team into the design process is a thing that I'm advocating for all the time, not only to onboard them onto user-centered design, but also for all the different perspectives that you're going to get. Like in design studios, there are so many times where I've seen the best ideas coming from developers, especially in a technical problem space. Or involving PMs with their business mindset, that I as a designer sometimes tend to forget. I need to think about the business as well. So it's always great to have like all these different perspectives together when you're thinking about solutions or creating ideas. And yeah, as I said before, follow your usual UX process and instincts, because with the think, make, check, iterative process, it's going to help you, you're going to discover on the way, and you're going to add a lot of value to any product, business, B2B or technical, whatsoever. And remember that you are capable, you have talent, and you belong. Yes. Do we have time for questions?
Yes, of course. you very much, Anna. Annamaria, that's really great. I just wanted to ask if anyone has questions. No, this works. Thank you. Anyone has experience working with similar products, B2B technical things? Experience with or working currently? No. There are some questions in the back.
Thank you very much. I just had a question because I'm currently working like in a B2B kind of creative approach, and the problem is for me, how can you really like I work for companies and they use the products with their clients, with their customers, and how can you try to really get information from real users when you're actually working with companies first, which then will put the products on the market and make them used by their real clients?
That's a good question, because there's definitely a difference in finding people to talk to in a B2B context, in my experience. Sometimes, I mean, it depends on, sometimes the client has internal customers that we can interview, that helps. If not, I find still incentives work really well, even though, like as well as for B2C, because people in a B2B context, and this just stopped working, didn't it? They have jobs, right? And they have to be at their jobs. So sometimes getting interviews during the day is kind of hard. You could ask them to do it over lunch, offer them lunch, something that we did in the past that worked really well. Or just still give incentives. So the people that we interviewed here, we gave away like Amazon vouchers for €50 or something. Because they're really busy and it was hard to get hold of them. We use sometimes agencies who help us with recruiting as well. Or we just go. It's me who's doing this, okay. Stop touching you. Go to wherever the users are. So here we were dealing with a lot of people in the open source community. So we were posting things on Slack, where in their group channels. Or you could go out, we were going out guerrilla sometimes, going into PMEs in France to like find customers, ask if they have time for interviews. Yeah, but does that answer your question? Sometimes you have to get creative. Yes.
There's the mic coming behind you.
Thank you. We are evaluating the solution for big companies in the travel domain, the event domain, in case of incidents. Incidents which involve many people. It's difficult for us to find users, because these people, these users, are not actually in incident situations. We cannot. It's difficult to find some people and to interview them.
What kind of incidents are you talking about?
In case of train accident, circulation problem,
Okay.
where some thousands of people are involved and they are not drive correctly in these situations. So the solution is intended to carriers or ONG in French, or regions, states, etc. And the users are many people who can be involved in these incidents. So, what do you advise in this case to collect user information and user client information and so on.
Not sure. It's like a tough one. I'm not sure what to advise you. Have you tried to reach out to people who have been in these situations? Can you get hold of those? Like,
Some, yes.
so what things have you tried in the past?
These people get not sufficient information about the incident and was not thrived, was not helped, and the companies would not help their users, their clients, because they was not prepared, they had not the tools to manage the situation. So there is lack of evaluation of the of what an incident can be and what solutions can be brought to the user and to companies who have to manage that. But we lack of information. We have incident descriptions, but actually there is no product for that.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Maybe we can talk a little bit more at the end together. If anybody has some good ideas or experience to help with this, we could talk a little bit more. I don't have a good answer like off the top of my head right now, I'm afraid. But let's talk more.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I have some ideas, maybe I can pass you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Or
There was a question in the back.
Hello, I'm Mathieu. I work in a big company for a developer portal, and I have a great collaboration with my team of developers. But sometimes I tend to find that developers have the bias, as a designer, I know that I'm not my user, but I feel like it's really hard to explain to developers that are building a product that they are using, but that they are not their user. What would you recommend?
Yeah, very good question. It was a little bit like this in the project here as well that I showed you. I feel it really helps to include them into the interview process, even though they might say like, I have like better things to do, I have to work. Make them like shadow one of those interviews and let them hear from like firsthand what people are struggling with and how they're using the product or the service. I think that really helps to build empathy because it's very easy to get into your like tunnel vision perception where you feel like I know this product and I'm as well a user, that sometimes you forget how other people might have a different experience with your product and service. So it's like the most effective thing that I feel has been working for me, including them into the process. Have you tried?
Yeah, I've had a lot of results taking them into the process. And I feel like doing that can be even more. I've tried another project, I include PO on more financial projects, and I see like the manager who didn't understand before, and after they come, they see the user struggling with the interface, with all the problems that I told them, and they understand way better. So I think I need to do that with the developer too.
Yeah. Cool, give it a try, I would say. One more?
No. Just on top, but at Le Bon Coin, we are making like just guerrilla test in the Gare de l'Est, just like for 2 hours with some of our developers in the future team. So, and every time that they are happy to make it, because they have the feedback of what we're doing and what could be the possible mistakes. So just guerrilla, and that's maybe the end of the process, but as every time they are excited to make that. So yeah, after there is always like reluctant people, but that's maybe next step.
Great. Thank you. Another big applause.